Daniel Ricciardo's silly season dragged on for way too long as he hopped back and forth between the Mercedes reserve seat or a gap year, only to return back to Red Bull in the end. But while we've heard rumblings about the Silver Arrows not offering him a seat at all, Toto Wolff has finally put those rumors to rest. In today's video, we're gonna talk about Ricciardo's frantic season and more, so keep watching. First off, Wolff confirms Mercedes talks with Ricciardo. At one point in his career, Danny Ric was easily one of, if not the, fastest driver on the grid. His racecraft, tire management, and of course, that signature dive bomb overtake move were absolutely top-notch. In fact, it would be fair to say that he's the only Red Bull pairing with Max Verstappen who's actually managed to give the Dutchman a hard time racing next to him. Now, people say his move to Renault wasn't that bad, but in all honesty, the Honey Badger just hasn't been the same since his departure from the energy drinks outfit. And while there have been many theories as to why, some of which we'll get into later, the fact of the matter is that in 2022, most teams didn't want to hire him for next year. Well, at least as one of the two main drivers. A team that did want to hire him as a reserve driver, however, was Mercedes. Throughout the 2022 silly season, the Silver Arrows remained the frontrunners to secure the Australian's signature. Not to mention, at one point, he even admitted his intentions to join the team during an interview. Oh, and then there were comments from Hamilton and Toto Wolff about how they'd love to have Ricciardo on the team. Still, it seems like the 33-year-old's heart just wasn't in the move, as he eventually ended up returning home to Red Bull. According to Wolff, however, while the offer was very much on the table for him to join Mercedes, they just couldn't figure out the details before Red Bull's offer arrived. Up next, Wolff concedes Red Bull was too enticing for Danny Ric. Speaking to GP fans, the Mercedes boss had nothing but words of praise for the Australian. He called Ricciardo a super guy and admitted how it was a shame to not have him in a cockpit for next season because someone like him needs to be in a race car. What's more, the Austrian also confirmed that there were talks between the team and the driver, but they ultimately fell apart. For him, it's pretty much impossible to figure out why the Honey Badger's tenure at McLaren didn't work out like his time at the other teams. As a matter of fact, he even went as far as to say that he's been following the 33-year-old since his early years in the junior series, saying he was always one of the fastest drivers on the track. Now, if you didn't already know, Ricciardo was indeed one of the fastest drivers in the world during his time in the junior ranks with Red Bull. Like, there's a reason why he got promoted to the main F1 team so quickly. What's more, he used to be so quick back in the day that everyone thought he'd win at least one world championship in his career. But of course, we know how that's turned out now, which honestly is just unfortunate. Still, he's had a pretty great career, and there's still more to come. Coming back to Wolff though, the Mercedes boss said that the Red Bull offer was perhaps too good for the Honey Badger to turn down. After all, he knows all the people there. Not to mention, Red Bull is the best option for Ricciardo. While Toto was a bit disappointed at the fact that they couldn't secure the Australian signature for next season, he had no hard feelings about it. Instead, he wished the driver good luck and hoped that he got a good deal over there. Besides, the Silver Arrows are probably gonna get Mick Schumacher as their reserve driver for next year, who's no slouch when it comes to raw talent either. Now, for Ricciardo, Red Bull was perhaps the best option. After all, not only did he have nothing to gain from joining a lower-tiered team like Haas or Williams, but he probably would have tarnished his reputation even further. Like, the dude has already taken way too much flack for not being competitive in enough, and the last thing he needs right now is a slower car. And in spite of the fact that he may not be driving a Red Bull week in, week out, even rare chances for him to have an outing in practice sessions could prove to be super useful in showcasing his raw pace and talent. Not to mention, other teams are going to be keeping a keen eye on how he performs with a nippier car after his McLaren tenure. What's more, he's even talked about how he's got so many fond memories of his time there, and the fact that he's still welcomed with open arms by Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, and everyone else speaks volumes about their relationship. Plus, he gets to recharge and refocus on his career and contribute his talents to the best team on the grid right now. Moving on, the Australian explains how he outqualified Norris in 2021. Now, even though people think Ricciardo's always been bad in the papaya orange car, that's not actually true. In fact, if anything, he was kinda on par with Lando Norris during his first year. Well, at least in qualifying. Oh, and yeah, he did win that race in Monza too. Still, his 2021 record, albeit not too great, was still miles better than 2022. Like, in his first year, the Aussie unqualified Norris on 7 occasions, a number that later shrank down to just 3 this season. What's more, he started off his first season at McLaren in great form by coming out on top in Bahrain and Imola. For reference, he finished 2022 after going on a run of 8 consecutive races without starting ahead of his teammate. Yeah, that's a massive drop. How did he manage to start off on the front foot though? And why can't he replicate that? Well, for him, back then, he felt more in tune with the car as he was driving on instinct. After all, he hadn't been in the car long enough to really judge its weaknesses. So while that also created a wider margin of error, it usually ended up working out for the Honey Badger. Compare that to his 2022 drive, and he almost feels like a different driver. And according to him, perhaps it does come down to him analyzing the car way too much and feeling paranoid about every single move. Besides, overthinking when you're driving at over 200 miles per hour probably isn't the move. Coming up, could Ricciardo have performed better at McLaren? Ricciardo's turbulent time at McLaren will always remain a mystery for everyone involved. Sure, you could say that the car wasn't suited to him, or that he just wasn't feeling confident. The fact of the matter is that no one really knows what happened. That said, the 33-year-old did mention how if he didn't try to do too much or dive too deep into the technicalities of the car, he may have done better at the team. For him, having that instinct and feeling for your ride is much more important than actually analyzing stuff. Not to mention, by diving too deep, not only did he expose the car's weaknesses, but also his own, which then sent him into a vicious cycle of losing his confidence. And honestly, maybe he is right in saying that, cause the data does back up what he's saying. Then again, is that really an excuse for not being able to perform well? Like, doesn't every single driver have to go through that whenever they join a new team or get into a new car? Now, whether you chalk Ricciardo's shortcomings down to the car or himself, one thing is for sure, he didn't have a great atmosphere in the papaya orange outfit. So now that he's in Red Bull, we're sure he's gonna improve, especially with all the positivity that surrounds him. Besides, that Red Bull car does suit more aggressive drivers, so he's got that going for him as well. Finally, Ricciardo is looking forward to racing again in 2024. The 33-year-old feels at peace after securing his move back to Red Bull, and for him, it's nice to be back in familiar surroundings as he recharges to launch his bid to return to the grid in 2024. What's more, he also believes his 2022 season prematurely came to an end, as amidst all the chaos and news, he just couldn't focus. Now that the year is ending, however, he feels like he can finally let it go and not think too much about his time at McLaren. Of course, he admitted that he still thinks about it from time to time, just because it's all such a mystery. Not to mention, the feeling of not figuring out the car still feels foreign to him. But now, he's gotten rid of all the head scratching and is only looking forward to coming back in 2024. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Ricciardo will get a seat on the grid in 2024? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.